Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take stacks of sources, find the key nuggets, and get you informed fast. Today, we're really digging into a foundational story, one most people think they know pretty well, specifically the very end of Genesis chapter 3, verses 20 through 24.
Right. And our deep dive looked at historical analysis, theological commentary, quite a range. And what emerged about this moment, right after the fall, Adam and Eve leaving Eden, is that it's much more complex than just, judgment.
More complex how?
Well, what's fascinating is the consensus across these different views. They all point to this scene being layered with hope, actually, divine care, and maybe surprisingly, the start of a new chapter.
Okay, so hope and care, right after the fall. Our mission then is to unpack these verses, see what surprising insights the sources revealed, and maybe understand why this ancient story still speaks to ideas like protection, provision, and new starts. So let's get into it. Where do the sources suggest we start? It begins with something pretty simple, right? Verse 20.
Exactly. It seems small, but it's significant. Adam names his wife, Eve, and the reason given is key. Because she would become the mother of all the living.
Ah, right.
Yeah, so it's not just a name, it's a declaration. Our sources really highlighted this. Even right there, amidst the consequences, you have this spark of hope. It points to life, not just the loss they just experienced.
Wow, okay. So life is affirmed right away. But they're still in a tough spot.
Yeah.
What about their immediate needs? Verse 21, that's often overlooked, isn't it? A really tender moment.
It really is. The text says, "The Lord God made garments of skin for Adam and his wife and clothed them."
Garments of skin.
Yeah, and this is huge. Our sources emphasize this is the first time in the Bible that something dies. An animal's life is given so Adam and Eve can be covered. And across the board, this is seen as a picture of God's, immediate care, making sure they aren't left exposed or ashamed, even right after they disobeyed.
And is there more to it? I mean, this act of providing covering, does it point beyond just meeting an immediate need?
Absolutely. A strong theme that came through is how many see this as foreshadowing.
Foreshadowing sacrifice.
Exactly. Hinting at God's bigger plan, to cover and redeem humanity. It sort of sets the stage for a lot of what comes later in the biblical story.
Okay, so we've got the naming hope for life, then God's provision care, and maybe foreshadowing. But then comes the bit that feels like pure punishment. Verses 22 and 23, the banishment from Eden. What did the research show about that?
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting and maybe challenges how we usually think about it. God's words are quoted. The man has now become like one of us, knowing good and evil.
Right.
He must not be allowed to reach out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever.
So stop him from eating from the tree of life.
Precisely. And while, yes, paradise lost is definitely part of it, the sources consistently frame the banishment itself not just as punishment, but as an act of mercy.
Mercy. Banishing them is mercy. That feels counterintuitive.
It does. But the reasoning highlighted is really compelling. Imagine living forever in that broken, fallen state.
Ah.
That would actually be a curse, wouldn't it? Not a blessing.
Okay, I see the logic. Eternal brokenness versus this. So the expulsion could be seen as a form of grace.
That's the question the sources raise. Can kicking someone out actually be an act of grace? It prevents a worse, permanent state of being.
That's a heavy thought. Banishment is mercy. But it still involves suffering, loss. How do the sources square that?
They don't downplay the pain, but they frame it in terms of preventing an even greater eternal suffering. It's about setting a necessary boundary, a separation that maybe paradoxically makes future redemption possible instead of locking them into endless brokenness.
A protective boundary.
Okay.
Which leads us straight into verse 24 with that really dramatic image, the cherubim and the flaming sword. That sounds pretty final, pretty intimidating.
Right.
How does that fit with this idea of mercy?
It is a powerful image, no doubt.
Yeah.
After he drove the man out, he placed on the east side of the Garden of Eden cherubim and a flaming sword flashing back and forth to guard the way to the tree of life.
Guards the way.
Exactly. So its primary function, as the sources describe it, is as that boundary marker, a very clear, very visual reminder that you can't just go back. Things have changed. It signifies separation.
But is there but?
There is, if you connect it to the bigger picture. The sources noted that this very separation, this guarding of the way, also implies a kind of longing, a space for eventual restoration. The path is blocked now, but the memory, the desire for what was lost, that remains.
So pulling all these pieces together, Adam naming Eve, God's provision, the banishment as mercy, the guarded gate, What's the big takeaway here? What are the sources really getting at? It feels like more than just explaining verses.
I think the aha moment is seeing how this whole passage often reads solely as judgment is fundamentally about protection, provision, and actually the start of something new.
A new chapter.
Yes. God doesn't just abandon them, he clothes them. He sends them out, yes, but almost with a purpose implicit in Eve's name. And he sets the stage for the entire rest of the story: return, redemption, hope.
So it reframes it. Not just God's justice, but his grace, his mercy, actively working even in the midst of consequences, shaping the future.
Precisely. It's a powerful shift in perspective offered by these sources.
Yeah, it really is. It turns what looks like an ending into a very different kind of beginning. They leave Eden, sure, but they carry that promise of life, literally through Eve, the mother of all the living.
Mm-hmm.
The story isn't over at all. It's just starting again, but on different terms.
And that highlights something really core, I think, that goes beyond just this story. Even when we face fallout from our choices, grace isn't suddenly absent. Often it's right there in those tough transitions, maybe opening up a different path forward than the one we lost.
Hmm. So we've explored how this ancient story, often seen through that lens of pure consequence, is actually woven through with these threads of enduring provision and surprisingly new beginnings. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Where do you, listening now, maybe see that kind of unexpected provision in your own life, especially in hard seasons? Or how do you find hope after a loss?
Yeah, this dive really encourages reflection on that idea that God's care doesn't just switch off when we mess up, and that sometimes leaving a kind of garden, whatever that represents for us, while painful, might actually be the start of something unexpectedly new and meaningful.
So maybe a final thought to leave you with. Think about how these old narratives tap into really deep human experiences, loss certainly, but also renewal. And consider how recognizing mercy, even in what looks like a harsh moment or a difficult transition in your own life, could potentially shift your whole perspective. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep the faith in the unfolding story.